came up in the night last spring, took everything up to the sill. It left behind a coat of silver mud and a silence deep and still. My daughter played beside that river bank from the day that she could walk. Now the river plays her music back to me on the reeds when the night birds talk. Siltwater, siltwater, carry her name down to the sea where all rivers came. Siltwater, hold what I couldn't hold. Siltwater, keep her from the cold. Siltwater, siltwater, sing to me the lullaby she used to ask of me. I stand at the bank and I'll call to the deep. Siltwater, give her back her sleep. The fishermen say that on Midsummer's Eve a girl walks out on a stone. Her dress is the color of a river clay, and she never walks alone. They say she leads the young ones in who follow her glowing light. I know my daughter's face in any dark, I know her voice any night. Siltwater, siltwater, carry her name down to the sea where all rivers came. Siltwater, hold what I couldn't hold. Siltwater, keep her from the cold. Siltwater, siltwater, sing to me the lullaby she used to ask of me. I'll stand at the bank and I'll call to the deep. Siltwater, give her back her sleep. Beside this river 40 years, I know its moods like my own blood. I know it takes without apology and gives back only mud. But every night I set a lantern out upon the old stone wall, just in case my daughter finds her way and needs a light to follow home with all.
Moss grows fast on a fresh turned grave, faster than mercy grows in a man. I've watched it cover the ones I've known since the grief inside me began. The gravedigger whistles while he works. He's made his peace with the dead. He says the moss don't care who you were, it just grows on what it's fed. Mossgrave, mossgrave, cover me green, cover what I was and all I have been. Mossgrave, mossgrave, grow thick and slow, let no one remember what's buried below. Mossgrave, mossgrave, hold what I gave, let the living keep moving past my grave. Mossgrave, take me into the stone. Mossgrave, I'm ready to go home. I knew a man who dug his own grave out behind his father's field. He measured it twice with a piece of old rope and then covered it and healed. He lived another 30 years after that. They say he slept soundly each night. Said there's peace in knowing where you're going. Said it settled something right. Mossgrave, mossgrave, cover me green, cover what I was and all I have been. Mossgrave, mossgrave, grow thick and slow, let no one remember what's buried below. Mossgrave, mossgrave, hold what I gave, let the living keep moving past my grave. Mossgrave, take me into the stone. Mossgrave, I'm ready to go home. There are graves in this churchyard with no names, just a number carved in stone. The ones who had no one to write their name, the ones who died alone. I come here on the dark of the moon, and I speak to each unnamed one. I tell them someone knows they were alive before the moss came and was done. Mother's dress on the wedding day, a dress the color of old snow. The groom stood waiting at the altar rails with a smile that the guests didn't know. It was the smile of a man who owns a thing, not the smile of a man in love. She walked the aisle and she knew the difference, and she knew what it would come to show. Cindervow bride, cindervow flame, burning is the end of every name. She took the ring and she made the vow, but she planned the ending from the now. Cindervow bride, cindervow ash, love that owns you has to burn to ash. She smiled through the whole ceremony long. Cindervow bride, no one heard her song. They say the fire started in the parlor,
Around about 2:30, the groom was found against the garden wall, in his boots without a shoe. She was gone before the rooster crowed, her mother's dress on the garden gate. The sheriff said he'd never seen such a thing, but he didn't search too late. Cindervow bride, cindervow flame, burning is the end of every name. She took the ring and she made the vow, but she planned the ending from the now. Cindervow bride, cindervow ash, love that owns you has to burn to ash. She smiled through the whole ceremony long. Cindervow bride, no one heard her song. Have passed and the house is gone, just a scar where the foundation stands. They say she's seen in town some market days, an old woman with calloused hands. She never married again and never spoke of the husband or the dress. She tends a garden and she hums a tune that the neighbors can't quite guess.
The fox died under the woodpile last January. I found it when the snow withdrew. Its bones were clean by March, picked perfect by whatever winter creatures do. I kept the skull on the windowsill through April and talked to it in the dark. Something about the hollow of an eye socket helps a man find the mark. Foxbone winter, foxbone cold. Foxbone is how the story gets told. Something dies so something understands what lives beneath the skin of frozen lands. Foxbone winter, foxbone night. Foxbone is what you hold in the light when the living can't give you what you need. Foxbone winter, foxbone creed. My neighbor said it was unhealthy talk to speak to dead things in the house. I said she kept a portrait of her dead husband in every room in the house. She never answered, just looked at her hands. I think she understands. some grief takes what it should. Foxbone winter, foxbone cold. Foxbone is how the story gets told. Something dies so something understands what lives beneath the skin of frozen lands. Foxbone winter, foxbone night. Foxbone is what you hold in the light when the living can't give you what you need. Foxbone winter, foxbone creep. By April I return the skull to the woodpile, put it where the fox had lain. The spring came on and covered it with moss, and I didn't need it again. But every January when the cold comes hard and the silence fills the wood, I think about that clean and perfect skull, and I think it understood. Mudcrow sits on the old levee fence and watches the water go by. He's been there every morning for 30 years, at least that long by my eye. My father called it a bad omen bird, said it shows up when someone will drown. He said the mudcrow watched the levee break in '65 and watched the whole third ward go down. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow eye, watching everything before it dies. Mudcrow perched on the sorrow fence, watching since before it all made sense. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow wing, black against the sun, announcing everything. It never cries and it never calls, it just watches from the levee wall. I've seen it on the morning the child was lost. I've seen it the day the mill closed down. I've seen it sitting on my own front gate the morning I nearly left this town. I walked out to it with my packed up bags. It looked at me and didn't move. I put my bags back in the hall that day. I don't know what I had to prove. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow eye, watching everything before it dies. Mudcrow perched on the sorrow fence, watching since before it all made sense. Mudcrow ballad, mudcrow wing, black against the sun, announcing everything. It never cries and it never calls, it just watches from the levee wall. Last spring I found a mudcrow on the ground beneath the levee fence at dawn, lying still with its wings spread perfect wide, like it knew how to be gone. I buried it beside the water's edge, marked the spot with a piece of white stone. Since then the levee's been quiet in the mornings, and I've been more alone.
The women in my line were made from ironbark. They bent but never broke. They raised the children through the famines and the wars, through every grief that came in smoke. They never asked for softness or for mercy. They asked for what they'd earned. They put their hands in everything that burned and came out rough and stern. Ironbark testament, ironbark line. Women made of harder things than wine. Ironbark mother, ironbark hand. Ironbark is how you take a stand. Ironbark testament running through my blood. Women who are barefoot through the mud. I carry every one of them in me. Ironbark testament, I'm free. Crossed the water in the winter with 4 children and 30 pounds. She said she never looked back at the shore. She only looked at where she was bound. She built her life in an unfamiliar country with her ironbark spine and her name. She never spoke of what she left behind, but I know all the same. Ironbark testament, ironbark line. Women made of harder things than wine. Ironbark mother, ironbark hand. Ironbark is how you take a stand. Ironbark testament running through my blood. Women who walk barefoot through the mud. I carry every one of them in me. Ironbark testament, I'm free. Of the line with the old name. The daughters took their husbands' names and went, but the ironbark lives in me regardless, no matter where the family was sent. I say their names before I go to sleep. I say them like a prayer or a sword. Every woman who survived to give me life, every woman who endured. Never told my mother what I did. That summer in the nettle field, I was 17 and someone else, and I never fully healed. The man who asked me didn't ask me right. I didn't have the words to say. The nettle field is houses now in rows, but I remember every blade of gray. Nettle confession, nettle shame. Nettle grows back wild and fast the same. You can build your houses on the field, but the nettle underneath won't yield. Nettle confession, nettle scar. You are still exactly what you are. I'll speak it to the ground, if not to God. Nettle confession, blood and mud and sod. My daughter found me crying in the yard last summer by the garden wall. She asked me what was wrong, and I almost let the whole confession fall. I swallowed it back down like iron water, like I always learned to do. There are things you keep to keep the ones you love from knowing what you've been through. Nettle confession, nettle shame. Nettle grows back wild and fast the same. You can build your houses on the field, but the nettle underneath won't yield. Nettle confession, nettle scar. You are still exactly what you are. I'll speak it to the ground, if not to God. Nettle confession, blood and mud and sod. I'm old enough now to understand that silence is its own kind of sin. That the things we bury in the nettle field keep growing from within. So I'll stand at the edge of what I was and say the name of what occurred. Maybe the nettle field will hear me finally and let me go on. Just my word.
I dug a hole behind the churchyard wall where the preacher never looks. I buried every promise that I made, every lie inside my books. The soil took my name without a word. The worms don't ask you why. A man can disappear into the ground just as easy as he'll die. Hollow graves, hollow ground. Hollow is the only thing I found. God don't answer out here in the dark. Just the silence where there used to be a heart. Been carrying a man I don't know, walking through this life like borrowed time. Hollow grace was never mine. My mother kept a photo on the wall of a man I used to be. She dusted off on Sunday after church like she still believed in me. I called her once in October rain. Didn't pick the phone. Some people keep the dead alive, and some just keep alone. Hollow grace, hollow ground. Hollow is the only thing found. God don't answer out here in the dark. Just the silence where there used to be a heart. Hollow grace, hollow road. I've been carrying a man I don't know, walking through this life like borrowed time. Hollow grace was never mine. The winter came and took the last old oak that stood beside the fence. I didn't mourn it long, I recognized the way that dying went. Now I sit out on the rotten porch and watch the field go gray, wondering if the hole I've dug back there is wide enough someday.
kitchen table with your hand on the old family book. You swore the same way your father swore to your mother, with that same sidelong, crooked look. Your father's vows burned down the house eventually. Your mother stood in the cold. I should've recognized the family pattern. I was 22 and bold. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn word, dry as kindling you ever heard. Touch a match to what a man has sworn, and watch the whole thing catch and burn. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn flame, burning as how promises became. Ash on my hands, ash on my floor. Tindersworn vow, I don't swear no more. Vows in a box on the shelf for 11 years. I kept them right. I took them out and read them on our anniversary by the dying candlelight. The words were good, the words were beautiful, the way your father's words were too. The vows were true when you were saying them. I know that much is true. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn word, dry as kindling you ever heard. Touch a match to what a man has sworn, and watch the whole thing catch and burn. Tindersworn vow, tindersworn flame, burning is how promises became. Ash on my hands, ash on my floor. Tindersworn vow, I don't swear no last winter in the yard. Watched every vow go bright and black. Some things you keep until you're ready not to, and then you don't take back. The kids watched from the window wondering. I told them it was just old paper. They seemed to understand the way kids do, that something ended in the vapor.
Called him a saint when he healed the Watkins girl who'd been sick since she was 3. He laid his hands on her at the river bend, and she walked home clear and free. I knew him when he was just a man, before the stories made him glass. I knew the things he did in his own darkness. I watched the ember years go past. Emberglass saint, emberglass glow. Emberglass is what you make of what you know. Half the fire and half the shine, half the darkness claiming to be divine. Emberglass saints, emberglass clear, showing what the people need to hear. I won't call you liar, I won't call you true. Emberglass saint, I just knew you. her and confessed without the costume of his name. He sat at my table and he wept a long time. He told me everything that he became. He said the Watkins girl had been improving 3 days before he touched her side. He just arrived at the right moment, wept. He said he couldn't hold the tide. Emberglass saint, emberglass glow. Emberglass is what you make of what you know. Half the fire and half the shine, half the darkness claiming to be divine. Emberglass saint, emberglass clear, showing what the people need to hear. I won't call you liar, I won't call you true. Emberglass saint, I just knew you. Died in March, the whole county mourned. They put his likeness in the church. I sat in the back pew at the funeral and watched them worship from my perch. The saint they loved was partly true and partly the story that the story needs. All saints are made of emberglass and darkness. All saints begin as seeds. Laid him out on the kitchen table with pennies upon his eyes. His hands were crossed on his good wool coat, the one he wore at sunrise. We brought the whiskey and the candles in, and we sat through the whole dark night, singing the songs he asked us not to sing, till we got the words right. Dark water wake, dark water song, singing for the ones who won't be long. Dark water candle burning down to wick, dark water time is running thick. Dark water wake, dark water grief, singing is the only relief. Pass the bottle and hold his hand. Dark water wake for the dying man. Old Mara told the story of his youth, of how he stole a horse at 16 and rode it through the town on market day, just to make the women scream. He laughed the loudest at his own disgrace, and bought the owner twice the horse's worth. We laughed at the table in the candle dark, and shook the grief out for what it's worth. Dark water wake, dark water song, singing for the ones who won't be long. Dark water candle burning down to wick, dark water time is running thick. Dark water wake, dark water grief, singing is the only relief. Pass pass the bottle and hold his hand. Dark water, wait for the dying man. By 4 in the morning, most had fallen asleep, slumped over the table and chairs. I sat alone with his coin-covered face and whispered my unspoken prayers. I told him the things that I never had said, the thank yous, the sorries, the love. Then I blew out the last candle in the room and gave him back to above.
I speak to the ash tree every morning, my lips at the root where it splits. I tell it the names of my dead in order, the names and the dates and the bits. The ash tree has listened for 30 years, its roots have grown around my voice. The forest keeps its own kind of record, the forest doesn't ask you to rejoice. Ashroot prayer, ashroot name, ashroot holds what I cannot claim. Speak into the roots, speak into the wood, speak everything I could and couldn't and should. Ashroot prayer, ashroot vow, the ash tree is the only altar now. I'll kneel in the mud with my forehead down. Ashroot prayer in the root brown ground. There was a woman before me at this tree. I found her initials cut deep in the bark. She came before the wars, before the roads, before the village lost its dark. I wonder what she whispered in the wood, what dead she named in the rain. The ash tree holds her prayers and mine together. The tree doesn't separate our pain. Ashroot prayer, ashroot name, ashroot holds what I cannot claim. Speak into the roots, speak into the wood, speak everything I could and couldn't and should. Ashroot prayer, ashroot vow, the ash tree is the only altar now. I'll kneel in the mud with my forehead down. Ashroot prayer in the root brown ground. The council says the ash tree has to come down. Disease in the bark, so they say. I've been sitting at its roots 3 days straight. I don't skies above, they cannot cut out the 30 years of whispers. They cannot cut out the names of my love.
We were born on the dirt roads between the mountains, where the pavement gave up and the gravel began. We grew up on the songs that our grandparents carried, from countries that no longer held the same land. We learned that the dark is just part of the singing. We learned that the wound is part of the song. We learned that the ones who are gone aren't gone fully. We carry the dead as we carry along. Dirt road songs for the living and dead. Dirt road song for the words left unsaid. Dirt road songs rising up from the clay. Dirt road songs at the end of the day. Sing it low, sing it long, sing it into the ground. Sing it for everyone lost and not found. Dirt road songs in the throat and the chest. Dirt road songs for the ones who need a rest. We have worked in the fields and the mines and the kitchens. We have worked in the cold and the heat and the dark. We have buried our children and buried our parents, and buried the things that were closest to heart. We didn't choose beauty, we found it in hardship. We didn't choose song, song chose us instead. The dirt road song is the sound of a people who sang because silence would leave them for dead. Dirt road songs for the living and dead. Dirt road songs for the words left unsaid. Dirt road songs rising up from the clay. Dirt road songs at the end of the day. Sing it low, sing it long, sing it into the ground. Sing it for everyone lost and not found. Dirt road songs in the throat and the chest. Dirt road songs for the ones who need a rest. Now we stand at the edge of an unfamiliar country, where the old songs are fading and nobody's sure whether the singing is worth what the singing costs, whether the old words still open the door. But I'll sing till the dirt road is swallowed by concrete. I'll sing till the last gravel stone of all of them back. There's a crossing out on the old saltpine road where the two black highways meet. The locals leave their offerings in the mud at the crossroads at the feet
of a wooden post with no name carved in it, in a rusted weather vane.
I've driven past it 40 years and always felt the cold before the rain.
Saltpine crossing, saltpine night. Saltpine is where you give up the fight.
Leave your sorrow at the wooden post, leave an offering for the one you love most.
Saltpine crossing, saltpine wind.
Saltpine is where the road bends in,
where you turn around to keep on through.
Saltpine crossing
is waiting for you.
A woman left her wedding ring one March, pressed into the black mud deep.
A man left both his work boots there in May, said he had no more use for feet.
A child left a drawing folded small of a family standing whole.
I saw it once before the rain took it. Something about it took my soul.
Saltpine crossing, saltpine night.
Saltpine is where you give up the fight.
Leave your sorrow at the wooden post, leave an offering for the one you love most.
Saltpine crossing, saltpine wind.
Saltpine is where the road bends in,
where you turn around to keep on through.
Saltpine crossing
is waiting for you.
Last autumn I drove out to the saltpine road with something in my coat.
I won't tell what I left at the wooden post. I won't write down what I wrote.
I drove home with both hands steady on the wheel, and the radio on low. Something lifted off my chest out there,
something I was ready to let go.